Welcome everybody. In this video we are gonna see how we can reverse engineer and dynamically modify an Android application. For this we are gonna use a few tools, one of them being Frida. Now Frida is a toolkit for developers, reverse engineers and security researchers. It's free, portable, scriptable and battle tested. It works on Windows, Mac, Linux, iOS, Android and other platforms. And it's a really powerful tool and we'll see that in a bit. We have here an Android app and a Genymotion Android emulator. This is the app that we are gonna be working with. So first I'm gonna install the app onto the device. For that I'm gonna use ADB, which comes with the Android SDK. So here's our app. And when we start it, we see this image with this next button. If we click it, we get this login form, which asks us for an email and a password. If we put something that's invalid, we get account does not exist. But if we put a valid account and click login, then we are being redirected to this activity that shows us the text you are logged in and also a log out button. So we can log out, get back, and that's how the app works. It's pretty simple. It's a good app to see what we can do with a few tools. Now we are gonna focus on this login part and we will try to find out the logic that's running behind the scenes when we click login. So the first thing that we are gonna do is run JEDX GUI. This is a tool for decompiling Android applications. So I just dragged and dropped the APK file in there. And first we'll go to resources, Android manifest. In here we can see the package name, which is sort of an ID of the application. And we are gonna save that because we are gonna make use of it later on. We can also see that the app is using internet permission and it has three activities: main activity, login activity and account activity, just like we saw previously. So we are interested in this activity, login activity. So let's go to source code, the package name and login activity. Here is the code of our login activity that JEDX managed to recover. Now if we scroll down, we see this send login request method, which returns a boolean and takes three arguments: API URL, email and password. And if we take a closer look at it, it's making a HTTP post request to the API URL and sending the email and password as parameters with that request. It's making the request and it's checking for the response code if it's equal to 200, which is a valid HTTP response code. If it is, it's gonna return true. If it's not, it's gonna return false. So that's what the send login request method is doing. Now we already found out the logic behind the login part. Now the question at this point is, can we somehow find out, for example, the API URL, or can we modify it in some way? And the answer is yes. But with JEDX, we can't really do that. And that's where Frida comes into play. Let's minimize this and go to Google and look for Frida server download. In order to run Frida, you would need two things. The first thing is a server that needs to be running on the Android device. And we can download the server from here. And the second thing is we will need to inject a script using the Frida command line interface into our app, and the server is making that possible. So I just downloaded the server. I'm gonna move it in here. It's an XZ archive, so I'm gonna extract that. So now we have the binary of it, the executable, and I'm gonna copy it into the device with ADB push. I'm gonna connect to the device, and another important thing is the device that will be testing on, the device that will run Frida server, needs to be rooted. So in order to run the server, you need to be running it as root. When you're running an emulator, that shouldn't be a big problem. I'm gonna make sure that the file has execute permissions, and I'm gonna run the server. So now the server is running on the device. We don't see any change to it, but it is running in the background, so to speak. Just gonna move that out of the way. And in here, I'm gonna create a new folder called Frida. Well, I actually did. So let's do the second step, and that is installing the Frida CLI. So let's do this. We could have used TMUX as well, but same thing. So let's go to desktop and our Frida folder in here. And first, let's create a Python virtual environment and activate it. And from here, now we can use, we have Python 3.12. Now we can use pip install Frida and Frida tools. So this is the easiest way to install Frida, and we are just gonna make sure that it's installed and it's all working as expected. So now let's create here a script that let's call it Frida script.js, and this is the script that Frida will run inside our Android device, actually inside our Android app. And the first thing that we need to do is specify this java.perform. This is for making sure that our code is running in the context of our Android app. So here let's just do console.log like this, and now we have the script created. It's just a console, it's just printing something to the console. Now in order to run it, what we need to do is in our second window type Frida-U for USB device. Although we don't have it connected through USB, ADB is seeing it as being connected through USB to the computer, so we do -U for that, -F for specifying our package name, and -L to specify our hook, which is Frida script. So now if we hit enter, we can see that our app just restarted. Frida restarted it and injected the script into it. So we see our message. That tells us that everything's working as it should. Now, let's see what we can do in here. So I'm gonna create a new variable called login activity, and it's gonna be equal to java.use our package name and login activity. And I'm just gonna print that to the console. So if you noticed, as soon as I saved it, I didn't have to restart Frida or the app or anything. Frida already took care of that automatically. So I got this printed to the console. Alright. So we did this because we are gonna make use of the login activity class. And the way we do that is we have this send login request method. And what we want to do is somehow modify it. Now, in order to do that, we're gonna type login activity dot send login request, which is our method, dot implementation equals with a new function that takes API URL, email, and password as arguments. Now, in here, let's print, well, console.log API URL, email, and password. And let's do return false. So what we did in here is we have overwritten the original implementation of the send login request, which takes 3 arguments and returns a boolean. Now we are just returning false, and we are also printing to the console the API URL, the email, and the password. So now when we type something in here and click login, we should see something printed to the console here, and also we will get an error. And we do. Account does not exist. We just found out the API URL, which we didn't knew from before, and we have the email and password. Now if I were to put a valid account in here, we can see the same URL, we see the email, we see the password, but if we click login, it's telling us account does not exist. So how do we fix that? Well, although we have just overwritten the send login request method of the login activity class, we can still make use of the original method inside our redefined method. And the way to do that is using it like this. We have the this keyword, this dot send login request, API URL, email, and password. So this code will basically first print to the console the API URL, email, and password, then execute the original send login request method, and we get the response and return false. Let's also print this response in here and see what we get. So we get true, telling us that the account is working. If I were to put something in here that doesn't work, an invalid password, we get false. Now we could just return response in here, and in this way the app will behave in the same way as the original implementation, but also print to the console the API URL, the email, and password. So now if we have the correct password and click login, we should be able to actually log in inside the app. And we are. So that's pretty cool. Now we could also print to the console the email and password only if the account is valid. So right now we get also the response. Now if we click login, nothing's gonna happen except for getting the alert that the account does not exist. But if we put the correct password, then we will get the email and password printed to the console. So this is how you can dynamically modify an Android application using Frida. And this is just the tip of the iceberg. You can do a bunch of things with it, and it's really, really powerful. Also, you can run it from Python instead of running the CLI. You can put this code into a Python program and do it like that, which is better in certain situations and easier. I hope you enjoyed this video, and thanks for watching.